Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a series recap video of one of my favorite series of all time, from Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. The new book, The Crown of Gilded Bones, is going to be released later this month, so I'm hoping this video will just help jog your memory of everything that went down in the first two books. Alright guys, before we jump into the video, let me preface by saying that this video will contain spoilers for A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire and From Blood and Ash. Also, you shouldn't watch this video in lieu of reading the first two books. I know there are going to be things I leave out. This is really just to jog your memory and for people that don't want to go and do a full reread before reading The Crown of Gilded Bones. Also, if you don't know, I post new videos on Tuesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to my channel. Also, you can hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. With that being said, let's get into the recap. All right, starting this off with From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, the first book in the series. This story follows Poppy, which is short for either Penelope, or as my husband says, Penelf. I have no idea which of these is correct. I'm gonna say Penelope because that is what the audiobook narrator uses, but I'm mostly just gonna say Poppy. So the story follows Poppy, and she lives in Carcedonia, which is this place that is ruled by the Ascended. So the Ascended are these godlike beings. They have immortal lives, they have all black eyes, and they don't get sick, and they pretty much live almost forever. They have these very long lifespans, and they don't go out during the day because they want to honor their gods. They only go out at night. And Poppy has been chosen by the gods to be the maiden. So she is going to go through the rite or the ascension where she is given over to the gods. But prior to doing that, she has to be veiled at all times. She can't talk to anybody except for these certain people like her, Tawny, who is her companion, and Ryland and Victor, who are both her personal guards. So she lives this very isolated life. And some other things you should know about Poppy: she was attacked when she was younger by Craven. And Craven are these zombie-type monsters that are created in the beginning of the story, they believe, by an Atlantean's kiss. So, what are Atlanteans? They are essentially kind of described almost like vampires. They are this evil group that the Ascended are pretty much protecting everyone from, and they are very dangerous, and they're being led by the Dark One, or Prince Castile. So, be on the lookout for him. So anyway, when she was younger, she was attacked by these Craven, and she has scars going down her face and her side. So very traumatic for her. She's been having nightmares about this in her adult life. And she also has powers. So she has the ability to feel people's pain, both emotional and physical. And she's able to alleviate other people's pain by touching them and almost sending like good vibes their way. So she thinks about happy things and it alleviates their pain, which is pretty cool. So Poppy also has been taught how to fight. So although she's the maiden and she's really isolated, Victor broke the rules. As I mentioned earlier, Victor is her personal guard, also kind of like a father figure to her, and taught her how to defend herself and actually gifted her a woven dagger. So woven are actually kind of like werewolves in this story. I know I'm throwing a lot of info at you. Like I said, I hope you guys have already read this book and I'm just jogging your memory. But she was gifted a woven dagger, so she always has that on her person, so she's always able to defend herself. So one day, Poppy decides to break the rules and goes out to the Red Pearl, and the Red Pearl is essentially a bar slash brothel, and she's just playing cards, chilling, trying to enjoy life a little bit. She's masked, no one knows who she is, and she sees Victor. He walks in, and she's like, oh my gosh, I gotta get out of here before he recognizes me. I don't want to get in trouble. So this woman tells her, hey, go upstairs, go to this room, you can hide there. So she goes up into that room, and turns out that room's occupied by Hawk, who is the newest member of the Rise Guard. All the girls love him, he's very attractive, and Poppy has actually sensed that he's emotionally always very sad, and she's not really sure why, but she's very interested in him like all the girls are. And they have this brief romantic moment. Poppy is disguised and doesn't believe that Hawk knows who she is because obviously he's not supposed to be messing around with the maiden. So they kiss a little bit, but before things go further, he's called away and she gets out of there and goes back to Castle Tierman. So she's back in the castle. She thinks that Hawk doesn't know who she was. Everything's good. And she's going back to her like day-to-day life. We're introduced to Lord Mazine, who is an Ascended, and he is just a terrible person. We also find out that Lord Mazine and Duke Tyrman, I don't think I mentioned this, Duke Tyrman and his wife are both raising Poppy until her ascension, so she's living with them. And it turns out that Lord Mazine and Duke Tyrman both like to torment Poppy. They take her back into their office for lessons, which is pretty much them caning her and just humiliating her. So they're pretty terrible. So one day, Poppy is out with Ryland and they're attacked. And Ryland is unfortunately killed. Like I said, Ryland was her personal guard, but she's able to defend herself and she's a badass. So she's able to get out of the situation and protect herself. So now there's an opening for a new member in her personal guard, and Hawk is called in, and she's like, no, oh my gosh. And she's so worried that Hawk is going to tell the Duke or the Lord that she was sneaking out if he finds out like it was her. So she's very worried, very concerned, but it turns out no need to worry. Hawk's a good guy, and they kind of create this like, they develop a relationship, and she really starts to trust him. He gets her out of her shell, and they just develop this very, very close relationship that ends up being a little bit more. And then there is a party towards the middle of the book, and everyone's kind of waiting for Lord Mazine to show up. Duke Tyrman to show up. He's running very late, and they eventually find out that Duke Tyrman has been killed. He's been stabbed through the heart, and it causes this huge commotion, and then dissenters appear. So I think I forgot to mention this earlier. Dissenters are actually followers of the Dark One. So they appear and they start attacking everyone. People Poppy knows are killed, and it's just very, very traumatic. And then she is whisked into Castle Tyrman for safety. So it's Victor, Poppy, and Tawny, then Lord Mazine, and then the Duchess are all together in this room and trying to like hold off the dissenters from barging in. And unfortunately, Victor is killed, and it is very sad. Poppy is just devastated, and in her grief, she ends up murdering Lord Mazine. You go, girl. Love that part of the book. And they realize that Castle Tyrman probably isn't safe for her, so they want to bring her to Solace, where the Queen is, and wait out her ascension there. So Hawk is put in charge of taking her to Solace with a group of people. We then meet Kieran, who is one of Hawk's friends who also recently came to the Guard, so not a lot is known about him. And they venture through the woods trying to get to Solace, and Poppy and Hawk have a little intimate moment. She gets to have like her first experience with some sexual stuff. It's very nice. And then they go from there, and they then get to, I think it's called New Haven, I might be wrong, and they realize that some things are amiss. Poppy's starting to question stuff, and then one of Poppy's personal guards, who doesn't work for Hawk, he works for, actually for like the Ascended, he comes and he's like, we gotta get out of here. I think Castile and Kieran are not what they appear to be. It's not safe. So Poppy's like, I don't really trust you. Like, I like Hawk. Me and Hawk just had this very intimate experience. I am no longer the maiden because of Hawk. So she doesn't really trust this guy, but then she learns that Hawk is indeed the Dark One. He is Prince Castile Denier, and he really has taken Poppy so that he can take her, because she is the Queen's favorite, and ransom her for his brother Malik, who has been taken and is pretty much a slave to the king or to the Queen. So she feels very betrayed. She's very upset, and she ends up stabbing Hawk in the heart and like running away. And then it turns out that you can't kill an Atlantean by stabbing him in the heart. You gotta take off the head. So he catches up with her, bites her on the neck, because it turns out, like I said, he's the Dark One, he has fangs, and realizes that she's an Atlantean, or at least part Atlantean. Her blood tastes very old, and is just amazed by this, and then brings her back and tells in front of everybody that plans off, he is no longer going to give up Poppy in order to get his brother. Instead, he's gonna marry her. And I love that part of the book. It's so good. I remember finishing this book and being like, I need to know what happens next. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what happens next, but just wanna say again, I love this book. It's so good. All right, guys, so I forgot to say this in my From Blood and Ash summary, and it is very important, so I'm going to say it before I dive into A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. So we learned from Hawke, or Prince Castile Denier, that the Ascended are actually something known as Vampyre. So Atlanteans are descendants of the gods, and Malik was the king of the Atlanteans. He ends up cheating on his wife and falling in love with a mortal named Isbeth. And the gods refuse to turn Isbeth into a Atlantean or a god, so she doesn't have eternal life. She's gonna die, and he can't deal with that. So Malik ends up drinking and draining all of Isbeth's blood and giving her his own, and this creates a vampire. Much like a vampire, they can't go out during the day or they die, and they need to drink mortal blood. Unlike the Atlanteans, who just drink from other Atlanteans, these vampire, or as we find out, the Ascended, drink from mortals. And sometimes they don't kill the human that they're drinking from, and that creates a craven, or those zombie monsters I mentioned previously. So it's really the vampire / Ascended that create craven, not the Atlanteans. And that's kind of how the whole story was created. And there ended up being a war between these two groups, and that's what created this whole situation. So that was very important, and I left it out. So now you guys know. Now moving on to A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. All right, moving on to the second book, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. So this starts off exactly where From Blood and Ash left off, with Hawke / Castile saying, "We go home to marry Princess." And obviously, Poppy is a little concerned about this. Hawke explains that in order for two Atlanteans to marry, they have to get married on Atlantean soil. We now know that Poppy is half Atlantean after Hawke has drank her blood. So Poppy is very concerned. She has been lied to by Hawke the entire last book, so she really doesn't trust him. Also, the people that follow Hawke / Castile, the Dissenters and Wolven, they don't trust Poppy. She has been being raised by the Ascended for a very long time, and they don't know anything about her besides she's the queen's favorite. So they have a lot to overcome here. We're also introduced to Alistair, who is one of the kind of head Wolven. He's not the top Wolven, but he is second kind of in command. He is very close with the king, Castile's father, and kind of acts as like a guide for him, and he also is like a father figure to Hawke. He's suspect, but that's just a theory. So we meet him. We also get to know a little bit more about Kieran. We get to know about how he is Hawke's bonded Wolven, so they're very, very close relationship, and it goes from there. So then a little time goes by, and Castile kind of explains to Poppy that, look, if we do this whole fake marriage thing, we both get what we want. I can get my brother back, and after we do this fake wedding, like, you can be free if you choose to. So Poppy is still trying to figure out, like, what's real and what's fake. Did he ever really care about her? Like, what's going on? And she's questioning a lot of that. Some other stuff happens that's, like, not super relevant to the plot. So then the Ascended end up coming to New Haven, and Poppy is taken by the Ascended, and the Ascended, I forget his name, I'll link it somewhere, actually ends up biting Poppy, and I think she realizes then that, like, look, Hawke was right. Everything he said was correct. Like, the Ascended are no good. And I think she was already starting to kind of think that. So, also, very important that I forgot to mention, Poppy also has a brother. So, should have mentioned this earlier. Poppy has a brother named Ian, who apparently ascended a while ago. And now Poppy is very concerned that Ian is in danger. Like, did he really ascend? Could he be this vampire type being? Like, what's going on? So Poppy ends up kind of making a deal with Castile. She's like, look, we can do this fake marriage. I trust that, like, you're not going to hurt me. And, like, I just want to get Ian out of wherever he is. I want to make sure he's safe. So that it's going to be, like, mutually helpful. So she goes along with the idea, and they start traveling, and they're attacked by these, like, I forget the name of the clan. It's like the Bone Clan or something. And Castile ends up getting stabbed 3 times, or shot 3 times with an arrow. And it's just wild time. So then it turns out that Castile's acting a little funny, and it's because he hasn't fed. So Kieran tells Poppy that if Castile doesn't feed, he could go mad. He could start wanting to suck the blood out of, like, everyone, just go, like, blood crazy. So she ends up saying he can drink from her. They have this very interesting scene where Kieran kind of is, like, monitoring her blood pressure as Hawk is drinking from Poppy. It's kind of a sexual moment, and that was fun. So then we keep progressing. This is really most of this story, there's traveling. They're just kind of traveling to Atlantia. So they get to their next stop, and we meet Vanetta, who is Kieran's sister, who I love. She's very sassy. And we also meet Jasper, who is Kieran and Vanetta's father. All of them are Wolven. It also turns out that Jasper is the kind of leader of the Wolven, and he's the one who's going to marry Poppy and Hawk. So as all of this is going on, slowly Poppy and Hawk kind of realize that they love each other. This is real. They're not faking. And it takes a long time for them to come to that realization. It actually was, for me personally, was very frustrating because I was like, they obviously love each other. Why can't they just do it? I get it. It builds angst, but it's my personal opinion. So they realize that they love each other, and they end up getting married for real. And the god Nyctos actually blesses their marriage and turns the sky super dark when they get married, which is really cool. Also, there was another sign for the gods. When Poppy was kidnapped, a blood tree appeared. So there's signs from the gods all over with Poppy and Hawk. So after that, they get married. We find out the Ascended are coming, and they are going to attack, I think it's called Septa's End, which is like this little like stronghold before Atlantia. And they're going to make a stand. So Hawk and Poppy are in this epic battle, and I love the way this battle was written. Oh my god, it was so good. It's like one of my favorite part of this book. And Poppy and Hawk end up encountering Duchess Tierman. So she says that Poppy's actually done what she was supposed to do, and like she wanted, this is how I read it, that like by marrying the Atlantean, like now she's on the throne, and that was really their end goal. I'm not really sure what's gonna like happen with that. That's gonna be my theories video. But she pretty much is like, look, like give us the maiden. And obviously they're like, no. We find out that Duchess Tierman actually killed a large population that was in New Haven, which was really sad. I didn't mention these characters, but Elijah, Magda, they were just these very nice people that were slightly friends with Poppy. So she's very distraught. They end up having this awesome battle, and when they think that all is lost, somehow all of the Wolven that, I should have said this earlier also, that Kieran went to get reinforcements. So the reinforcements come, and they're able to save everybody, which is great. So then Poppy and Castile have sex in like a carriage. It was just a very weird time sex moment that really kind of bugs me. But anyway, everyone's safe, everything's good, so they make their way to Atlantia. And while they've been making their way, Poppy's powers have been progressing. So I said earlier that she was able to like alleviate pain and feel people's emotions. Well, now she can feel everyone's emotions, and it's not very hard for her to figure it out. Like she can literally look at someone and figure out their emotion. And also she's being able to heal people, and she's glowing, which is like pretty cool. So she actually is able to heal a young Wolven named Beckett, and everyone watches. But now some of the people are wary of her because there are these beings known as empath warriors that were also known, I think, as like soul eaters or something, that the Atlanteans are kind of scared of because they were able to like manipulate emotions and so on and so forth. So they're kind of worried about that. So they get to Atlantia, and everything seems fine. They've survived this war. They love each other. I should mention, when they were on their way to Atlantia after the war, Poppy has a dream about what's going on with, she has a dream about her past, and she remembers some very important things about what happened when her parents were attacked. This will also be in my theories video, which is why I'm not going too in depth in it. And she's also saved by a god. So she almost walks off a cliff during this dream, but a god comes and is like, nope, don't do that. Turn back. You need to go to Atlantia. So that was also very interesting. I feel like this second part is very chaotic. There's a lot that happened in the second book. So anyway, make it back to Atlantia. We think everything's good. She survived getting to Atlantia. She survived the war. She survived not falling off that cliff. And Hawk ends up going with Alistair, I think, to see his parents. And Poppy ends up going with Beckett, who I mentioned was a Wolven who she helped. He's like younger. And she goes off, and it turns out that Beckett led her into a trap. So all of these Atlanteans have stones, and they're afraid that she's an empath warrior, like I mentioned earlier, and that she's manipulating Castile, and that she was raised by the Ascended, so like she can't be good. So they start to stone her and attack her, and then Poppy just loses it and lets loose her power and ends up killing this whole group of people. Not only that, all of the Wolven in the area end up coming to her to protect her. So we then find out that Poppy might be a deity or a god or something, and it's just so dramatic and so awesome. And the ending of this book, man, it was great. So the queen ends up coming, Castile comes, and Castile and the queen and the king kneel to Poppy and say, forget the exact wording, but they're pretty much like, bow to your new queen. And that is how the second book ends, and it's so good. So that's it. That's pretty much the recap of both books. I'm sure I left some things out, so I'm sorry if I do. You can let me know in the comments. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And like I said earlier, I post new videos on Tuesdays and Sundays. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys next week. Bye.